rate. That is the most common series which is usually asked in case of neurosurgery, and few topics which I have not touched upon in this 4 weeks of the introduction to the basics course. So few things I'll be touching upon in this thing. So I have not talked about the Shirey malformations. So these things I'll be discussing in detail in the coming classes when I take upon the pediatric neurosurgery topic. So you need to know the difference between Shirey type 1 and Shirey 2. So there are about 4 types of Shirey malformations. So as of now, I am not getting into those aspects of Shirey malformations. So you should mainly know about Shirey 1 and Shirey 2. So in case of Shirey 1, the caudal dislocation of medulla is unusual, whereas it is common in Shirey 2. The caudal dislocation to cervical canal is mostly the tonsils, whereas in case of Shirey 2, the entire brainstem descends into the cervical spinal canal. Okay, so the medulla, fourth ventricle, and the vermis descends into the cervical spinal canal. Myelomeningocele, it is very common in Shirey malformations. Hydrocephalus is also very common in Shirey malformations, and it is usually seen in infancy. Okay, the Shirey malformations is usually seen in infancy, where the Shirey type 1 is mostly common in young adults. The course of the upper cervical nerve is usually normal in type 1. Because of the migration of the brainstem through the cervical canal, there can be an upward or a cephalad migration of the upper cervical nerves. And the medullary kinking is present in the Shirey 2 because of the descent of the medulla into the cervical spinal canal. So the usual presentation in type 1 is suboccipital headache. The usual presentation in type 2 is hydrocephalus and meningoencephalocele. So in a nutshell, type Shirey 1 is common in adults, manifest with suboccipital headache, whereas Shirey 2 is common in infancy. It usually presents as a meningoencephalocele or a meningocele with hydrocephalus, a progressive hydrocephalus. So the most common benign skull tumor in an adult is osteoma. The most common malignant skull tumor in an adult is osteosarcoma. Most common brain tumor in adults is metastasis, whereas in pediatric age group it is pilocytic astrocytoma. Most common primary brain tumor in adults is astrocytoma, whereas in pediatric it is pilocytic astrocytoma. Most common astrocytoma in adults it is glioblastoma multiforme, whereas in pediatric it is pilocytic. Most common malignant brain tumor in adults it is glioblastoma multiforme, whereas it is medulloblastoma in children. Most common posterior fossa tumor it is hemangioblastoma in adults, whereas it is pilocytic astrocytoma in children. The most common benign intracranial tumor in adults it is meningioma, whereas it is pilocytic astrocytoma in children. Most common intraventricular tumor is astrocytoma in both age group. The most common midline brain tumor is meningioma in adults, whereas it is medulloblastoma in children. The most common tumor to calcify is oligodendroglioma in adults. It is craniopharyngioma in pediatric. So we had an MCQ about this in the last class. So the most common tumor, so both oligodendroglioma and craniopharyngioma have the tendency to get calcified, and it depends on the age group you have to address which is the issue. So the most common tumor to calcify in adult is oligodendroglioma. The most common tumor to calcify in children it is craniopharyngioma. So some of the cranial foramina and their contents. Okay, so these are the this is a busy slide where you have multiple foramens. So I have listed out what are the structures passing through the various foramens. You will invariably get at least one question in your entrance examination based on the structures passing through the foramen. So here I will discuss about the foramen rotundum, ovale, and spinosum. Okay, so in rotundum you will have the maxillary V2, maxillary division of trigeminal nerve and artery of the rotundum, and through foramen of ovale you have the mandibular division, that is the V3, and through foramen spinosum you will have the middle meningeal artery. So this is how the foramens are arranged within the skull. So this is the foramen rotundum, this is the foramen ovale, and this is the foramen spinosum. So through the spinosum you have middle meningeal artery, through the ovale you have the V3, and through the rotundum you have the V2. Then about the Bill's bar. So this is a structure in the internal acoustic meatus. So regarding the Bill's bar, definitely you will have one question in at least any entrance examination. At least one question will be there based on the Bill's bar or falciform crest. So when I attended in 2015 in JIPMER and in SGPGI, we had a question on Bill's bar. So what is this Bill's bar? So this is the structure called as the internal acoustic meatus. That is the porous internal acoustic meatus. So here you see the internal acoustic meatus. So this is the internal acoustic meatus. So now we are getting into the internal acoustic meatus, and then we will get this structure. So this is the internal acoustic meatus. This is the anterior, this is the posterior, this is the superior, and this is the inferior. Okay. So this is the Bill's bar. This is a vertical bar. And one which is horizontal is called as the falciform crest, within the which divides the this falciform crest divides the internal acoustic meatus into superior and inferior. So this divides into superior and inferior. Whereas the Bill's bar, it divides into this is the antero-superior and the posterior-superior. So the anterior lies the So the anterior-superior structure is the facial nerve. The posterior-superior structure is the superior vestibular nerve. The anterior-inferior structure is the cochlear nerve. The posterior-inferior structure is the inferior vestibular nerve. So this Bill's bar separates the facial nerve from the superior vestibular nerve. Okay, so that is the vertical crest of the Bill's bar. The falciform crest divides into superior and inferior. So this divides the facial and superior vestibular nerve from the cochlear and inferior vestibular nerve. So again repeat. The anterosuperior structure in the internal acoustic meatus is found by the seventh nerve. The posterosuperior structure by the superior vestibular nerve. The antero-inferior is the cochlear nerve. The postero-inferior is the vestibular nerve. So Bill's bar separates the seventh nerve and the superior vestibular nerve. So here is another picture where you can see this is the Bill's bar. So the anterior is the facial and the posterior is the superior vestibular. This is the falciform crest. You can see the cochlear, this is the cochlear nerve, and this is the inferior vestibular nerve. So this is how the structures pass in the internal acoustic meatus. This is the facial nerve with the nervus intermedius. This is the superior vestibular nerve, and this is the inferior vestibular nerve. This is the cochlear nerve. So here is the Bill's bar, which separates the anterosuperior facial nerve from the posterosuperior superior vestibular nerve. And here is the falciform crest. So the various foramens or various structures passing through the various foramens illustrated is in this picture. So this is the Meckel's cave through which the fifth nerve passes. So this is the internal auditory meatus, which we have already discussed. The 7th-8th nerve complex passes through it. So this is the jugular foramen through which the 9, 10, and 11 passes through it. The 12th nerve passes through what is called as the hypoglossal canal. This is the 12th nerve, which passes through the hypoglossal canal. So the various foramens concerned in the skull base. So the other important thing in this, the tumors of the neurohypophysis, the posterior pituitary, and the infundibulum. The most common tumors encountered in this posterior pituitary is metastasis, owing to the rich vascular supply. The significance of prolactin levels, this we have already discussed in when we are dealing with the neuro-oncology topics, when we are discussing about the classifications of the pituitary tumors. So the main thing which you have to remember is the normal value is up to 20 nanogram per ml. Up to 150 in case of a Stark effect. Okay, the Stark effect is mainly because of the compression of the pituitary stalk or the infundibulum. So wherein which you can have elevation of the prolactin level. So usually in case of Stark effect, the elevation of the prolactin will be usually only around 150. When the level is more than 150 or when it is more than 200, it is diagnostic of prolactinoma.